Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to discuss about trapezoids together with kites and their properties. Again, this is your junior high school mathematics teacher. And after you watch this video, you should be able to state the properties or theorems about trapezoids and kites. And you should be also be able to answer related uh, questions. So in this module, you shall be able to investigate, analyze, and answer related questions involving the different properties or theorems about trapezoids and kites. But in this particular big video, let us consider first the trapezoids, and probably on the next video, we're going to discuss kites. So for our next slide, let us take first the trapezoid. From its definition, it is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. Now, suppose we have a quadrilateral plane figure here, and obviously, it is a trapezoid. Why? Now, before we discuss the answer to that particular question, let us name first this quadrilateral as quadrilateral TRAP. And obviously, this is a trapezoid. and it is obvious, it is an obvious trapezoid simply because I just put uh, arrowhead markings on these two opposite sides, indicating that these two sides are equidistant to one another. So again, this quadrilateral is named as quadrilateral TRAP, and this is a trapezoid. Here we have segment TR is parallel to this symbol right here, the double vertical bar, read as parallel to, with what other segment? Segment PA, this one, the lower horizontal sides. So these two horizontal sides of the trapezoid are parallel, which makes this a trapezoid. Okay? Next. Of course, we call those two sides of the two sides of this quadrilateral as bases, since these two sides are parallel to one another. Again, the two parallel sides are known as bases. So, the upper base and the lower base. And for those two non-parallel sides or two non-parallel opposite sides are the legs. This one right here is the first leg, and the other side here is the second leg. Okay? And I've just drawn a vertical segment, which is the green segment. And this segment is actually perpendicular to this lower base. Okay, as indicated by the small square at this point. Okay? So the green segment is what? Segment, or we name this as segment RE, and this is the altitude or the height of the trapezoid. And those angles which are on the opposite end of the base, angle T and angle R, we call them what? We call them base angles. Okay? So it follows that angle P together with angle A are also base angles because these two angles are on the opposite end of another base, which is the lower base. Okay? So angle P together with angle A is another pair of base angles. Next. And the line segment that you just saw that the one that I just drawn, this one, whose endpoints are M and N, we call it the median. So why is it median? Because points M and N are actually midpoints of their respective sides. Okay? The midpoint of one leg is point M and the midpoint of the other leg is point N. Now, connecting these two midpoints by a segment, which is named as segment MN, we call it the median. Okay? Next. Of course, when we say midpoint of a segment, it is a point that bisects a segment such as this leg. Same thing with point N. Point N divides this side into two equal parts. And these are segment Rn, which is equal to segment NA, as indicated by the slash mark. Okay, slash marks. Next. Now, just like the other quadrilateral, a trapezoid has a set of theorems or properties. And these are: base angles of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. So, if we are going to draw a quadrilateral, particularly an isosceles trapezoid, okay, ito yung itsura. Okay? And those non-parallel sides are the legs, and you will notice that these two legs or the non-parallel sides are equal in length. Okay? Then let us indicate some points uh, on the four vertices of this quadrilateral, and these are point W, X, Y, and Z. So obviously the name of this quadrilateral is WXYZ, or quadrilateral WXYZ. Now suppose angle W measures 130 degrees. Therefore, angle X is also 130 degrees. Now, you will notice that in an isosceles triangle, the base angles are congruent. Okay? So, yun. Angle W is equal or congruent to angle X. Okay? Similarly, if this is 130 degrees, this one right here is 30 degrees. So, how is that? Okay? So, it's just so happen that these two are what? Supplementary. Okay? Why? Now, if we're going to recall the principles of parallelism, the two bases from this quadrilateral are what? Parallel coplanar line. And this leg right here serves as what? The transversal. And we know that if the two parallel coplanar lines are cut by transversal, these two angles right here are called what? The same side interior angles. And we know that in the principles of parallelism, same side interior angles are supplementary. Okay? Yeah. So if this is 50 degrees, this angle right here, angle Z, is also 50 degrees. Okay? Now, you will notice that in an isosceles trapezoid, each pair of base angles are congruent. Okay? So, angle Z is congruent to angle W. So, obviously, they are congruent since they have the same angular measures angular measure of 50 or 50 degrees. Next, for our second property of trapezoid, diagonals of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. So again, we have an isosceles trapezoid whose legs are congruent or non-parallel sides are congruent as indicated by identical double slash marks on those legs. So this is, of course, we are referring to the same quadrilateral WXYZ, and we're going to consider the two diagonals, segment WY and segment XA. Now, according to the property in an isosceles trapezoids, the two diagonals are equal in length or congruent to one another. Okay? If, for instance, WY is 14, or the length of segment WY is 14, then the length of XZ, or the other diagonal, is also 14. Okay? Next, another property. The median of a trapezoid is parallel to the base, and its length is half the sum of the lengths of the bases. So again, let us consider a trapezoid, such as this one. And we name this as quadrilateral TRAP. Obviously, the two opposite sides indicated by identical double arrowhead marks, meaning that these two sides are equidistant to one another or parallel to one another. Okay? Next. Obviously, the two parallel sides are known as the bases. And we have here the midline or the median, a segment connecting the midpoints of the legs of the trapezoid. And according to the property, the length of the median is what? It is the average length of the bases of this trapezoid. Or simply, the length of the median is half the sum of the lengths of the bases. Okay? Yeah. So, MN is parallel to each of the two bases of this trapezoid. And at the same time, MN is 1/2 the sum of the length of segment TR and segment PA. So these two segments are the bases or the parallel sides. Okay? Now, suppose segment TR has a length of 10 and segment PA has a length of 18. Therefore, we can compute for the length of segment MN using this formula, but we simply plug in the length of these two segments. So, MN will now be equal to 14. Okay, so ito yan, no? Substituting the value of TR, which is 10, and that of PA, which is 18. So, simplifying this resulting expression will give us the length of segment MN, and that is equal to 14. Okay? Yun. Next, for our next property, the median of a trapezoid bisects each of the diagonals. Okay. Now, if there is a median from this trapezoid, now this median did not just bisect each of these legs, but also the median bisects each of the two diagonals from this trapezoid. Okay? Yun. Okay, so this is the median, the white segment, whose name is segment MN. Okay? Of course, M and N are the midpoints of their respective respective legs, such as segment TP and segment RA respectively. Yan. So the intersection of the two diagonals is at point O. Now the median intersects the two diagonals at point X and point Y. Okay? Now, just like points M and N, points X together with point Y are also midpoint of their respective diagonals. Okay? So, MN, or the median segment MN, passes through the midpoints X and Y of diagonals uh, segment RP and segment TA respectively. Thus, or therefore, segment TY is congruent to segment YA, this one. Yun. Okay? Similarly, segment RX is congruent to segment XP, this one. Okay? Ayan. Next. Now, suppose segment TY is 10. Therefore, segment YA is also 10. Now, if segment RX has a length of 8, obviously segment XP is also 8. Okay? Now, for our next slide, let us consider this illustrative example. Now, if quadrilateral ABCD is an isosceles trapezoid, then, okay, segment AD is congruent to segment BC. Why? Because the legs of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. Then, angle A, this one, is congruent to angle B. Why? Because base angles of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. Next statement, letter C. Angle D is congruent to angle C because base angles of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. The same reason as letter B. Okay? Then what else? Segment AC is congruent to segment BD. These two diagonals are congruent. Why? Because they are diagonals of an isosceles trapezoid. And according to letter D, diagonals of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. And finally, letter E, the length of segment EF. Now, this drawing is not properly drawn to scale. Okay? So let us assume that this is the median, although it should be drawn exactly at the middle, not on the lower portion. Okay? Because segment E and segment F should be the midpoint of their respective legs, okay, of this trapezoid. Okay? Now, assuming that this is the median, so segment EF is half the sum of the length of segment AB and segment DC, because the median of a trapezoid is 1/2 the sum of the bases. Okay? Now, for illustrative example number 2, in a trapezoid ABCD, which is this one, if segment AB and segment DC are 15 and 23 centimeters respectively, so we are referring to these two bases with given lengths. For AB, that is 15 centimeters, and DC is 23 centimeters, the lower base. Now, how do we compute for the length of the median segment EF? So basically, we have the formula, which is already stated in letter E, this one. Okay. So what we're going to do is we plug in the equivalent length of AB and that of DC. And we know that AB is 15 and DC is 23. Now, simplifying this resulting expression, so by adding first those two numbers inside the parentheses, so that is 38 Then the resulting sum is to be multiplied by 1/2, and we have 19 centimeters, which is the length of the median segment EF. Okay? Now at this point, let us consider this activity. And I'll be giving you 5 to 10 minutes to answer this seat work. Okay? Or better yet, let us answer this right away. So obviously, number 1, the answer is parallel. Okay, so if you understand the direction, let us read this again. Quadrilateral TRAP is an isosceles trapezoid with median ED. Now, determine the relation exists between each of the following items. So, for number 1, segment TR and segment PA are what? Parallel. Okay? Next, number 2, segment TP and segment RA, this one, they are what? Congruent. Next, number 3, segment TA and segment RP. Where is it? Segment TA and segment RP. They are what? Congruent. Since they are what? Diagonal sa an isosceles trapezoid. Next, segment RI and segment AP. Where is that segment RI? This one. And then segment AP or PA. Obviously, they are what? Perpendicular to one another. Next, number 5, segment ED and segment PA. Segment ED and segment PA. They are what? Parallel. Okay? Next, number 6, segment RD and segment DA. Segment RD and segment DA. So they are what? Congruent. Next, item number 7, segment ED and segment TR. These two, they are what? Parallel. Next, number 8, segment TO and segment OA. Segment TO and segment OA, they are what? Congruent. Next, number 9, angle T and angle R are what? Congruent. Okay? So they are what? Base angles. And we know that in an isosceles trapezoid, base angles are equal in measure or congruent. I think this is the last item, number 10. We have another pair of angles. Where are these two angles? Angle T and angle P. Now, they are two base angles from their respective bases. Okay? Obviously, they are not congruent, but they are what? Supplementary. Okay? You just simply recall the principles of parallelism. Okay? And you will find out the reason why the answer to this item is supplementary. Okay? Next. For our next activity, I think I'll be giving you this one as your assignment. Okay? With the given diagram, I want you to answer these 10 items. And let us discuss the answer next meeting. Okay? I think that would be all. So we'll see you next time. This time for our next video about kites.